Hello, everyone. I'm Suzanne Springfield with Remax True, and I'm here today with my friend Amy Barnski with Center State Bank. Hi, Amy.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. I asked Amy to join me today because lately I've heard from a lot of potential buyers who are looking to buy their first home. So today we wanted to speak specifically to first-time home buyers, maybe people who are thinking about how exciting it is to own a home, how much they don't like their rental being stuck inside right now, and just ready for a new place. So we just wanted to get with you guys today to discuss some common questions that we get and see if we can help make the process a little bit easier for everybody. So let's talk about, you decide you want to buy a new home. So now what? Where do you start? First and foremost, I would say, think about what type of home you want. What part of town do you want to live in? How many bedrooms and bathrooms do you want? What do you like in a home? What do you not like in a home? These are all questions that are good to think about to help you narrow it down, because the more specific you can be about the type of home you like or don't like, the easier it's going to be for your real estate agent to help you find a new home. So once you kind of narrow down your ideal dream home of what you like, then you really need to start thinking about your budget. So that's where our loan officer friends come into play, especially my friend Amy. So Amy, when a customer first reaches out to you, tell us what type of information do you need to get started, and how do they actually contact you? How do they get to you?
So they can contact the team either by my cell phone, text message, email, whatever is easiest for them. And the first place we start is we talk about what their goals are and what their budget is and what they want to spend per month, and if there's a particular price range, so that we know what to qualify them for. After that, the next step would be to fill out an application online so that we can pull credit, see what they're eligible for, and we review their income documents. So.
Okay. Now, do you have any special loans for first-time home buyers?
We do. We have a couple. We have a buyer's advantage, which is 100% financing for first-time home buyers with a credit score of 660. So that'll allow some buyers to purchase and not have to put any money down. There are income restrictions in some areas and 660 credit score. There's also first-time home buyer grant programs available as well.
That's great. That's great. So in terms of credit score, you mentioned about a 680. What would you consider a good credit score? What should people be aiming for, really, if they're pulling their own credit online at home, thinking about buying a home? What's the goal to start with, would you say?
I would first caution buyers when they're looking at their credit score. Most of the time, if they're using something like Credit Karma, the score is going to be higher than when a lender pulls it, just because there's a different scoring model. Mm-hmm. So that was the first thing, is to look at their credit and have an idea of the range, but know that there might be a discrepancy between what they see and what we see. Mm-hmm. You know, score in the mid to upper sixes is a good credit score, and we can help people purchase a home with that credit score.
That sounds great. If they know that it's a little bit lower, perhaps they've had some issues and difficulties in the past, are there any ideas that you guys can suggest to potential buyers to help increase their credit score?
Absolutely. We can work with them if we've pulled a credit report and give them some suggestions on what to do so that they can increase their credit score. In other cases, it's just as simple as paying down their credit card debt to reduce the credit utilization on credit cards. That'll boost a credit score 15 to 30 points.
Oh, that sounds great. That sounds like an easy way to help get the score up pretty quickly.
It is.
Once they start paying off different items on the credit report, how long does it usually take for us to be able to see that reflected in the credit score?
We can help speed up that process by doing a rapid rescore. That could take anywhere between 3 to 5 business days if we have proof that something's been paid down, paid off, removed. If a consumer is trying to do it on their own without a rescore, it could be anywhere from 30 to 60 days.
Oh, wow. So it sounds like it definitely does help to have a loan officer in your corner to help speed up that process when you're ready to buy a home.
It is. The other thing too is with working with the loan officer, sometimes we see something on a credit report that may or may not need to be paid off. But as a consumer, you may say, oh, I have this old collection, let me pay it off, which can actually impact a score negatively. So it's always good to work with a mortgage loan officer so they can guide you and help you with that.
Now, do you guys charge extra for that service?
We do not.
That's great. That's perfect. A question that I get a lot is really just from first-time home buyers or people interested in buying their first home is really just how much money do I need to buy a house? And that's such a broad statement, a broad question. So I really want to try to help people kind of narrow it down. And, speaking from a real estate standpoint, in terms of planning for you first-time buyers out there, I would say to really also think about when you find your home and you go under contract, what you'll have to do in terms of putting money down is first put down an earnest money deposit. And that deposit shows your good earnest towards purchasing the home and is oftentimes credited back to you at closing. Depending on if you're purchasing a resale home or a new construction home and price point that you're in, this deposit can range anywhere from say $1,000, and I've seen it up to as high as $10,000 to $20,000, just depending on your price range. But usually it's a few $1,000s, so you'll need that at contract to get your under contract, which means you are committed to buy the home. You are working on getting your loan approval and moving towards the goal of closing on that new home. And then oftentimes the new construction, they might require what is considered a non-refundable deposit, which means that if you pick out any upgrades in the home, they want you to pay a small percentage of that cost up front just to go towards those options that they're putting in the home. And oftentimes this is credited back to you at closing as well. So those are two things to be prepared for up front. And then at closing, you'll also need your down payment for your loan, which will be determined by your loan program, unless you have the 100% financing program through Amy. And then also your closing costs and prepaid items. So Amy, can you help explain the difference between a down payment and closing costs to everybody?
Sure. So the down payment is a percentage that you're going to put down on the home that's going to reduce the principal balance of your mortgage. And we typically refer to that as LTV, which is loan to value ratio. So depending upon the product, it could be anywhere from 3% on a conventional loan, 5%, up to the buyer what they wanted to put, if they wanted to put more than that. And on an FHA loan, 3.5%. So the down payment is different from the other funds somebody's bringing to closing because it reduces the balance of the mortgage or the balance of the purchase price for what they're going to borrow with a lender. And the closing costs are the fees that are associated with closing a loan, such as attorney fees, state taxes, appraisal costs, if there's any lender fees, things of that nature.
So that the cost to actually get the loan together, get everybody's paperwork together, and what everybody charges to get that all set up for closing. Okay, well that makes sense. Now, also, so at closing, we had to be prepared for a down payment for our loan, and we know we had to pay the closing costs. And then sometimes we hear people talk about prepaid items, and that's another thing that we need to be prepared for at closing. What are prepaids? What does that mean?
So prepaids are separate from closing costs because they're costs associated with you owning a home. It's going to be your first year of homeowners insurance, and then it's also going to be the funds to set up an escrow account. And I like to tell people that the escrow account is like a savings account for your home. Every month you're going to make a deposit into your escrow account so that the lender can pay your escrows on your behalf, your taxes and insurance. So at closing, we have to set it up with a couple of months of cushion, just like a savings account. So we open it and you have an opening balance in your escrow account. And I think sometimes people get confused. They think it might be a closing cost, but it's actually a separate cost associated with purchasing a home.
So essentially, it kind of sounds like you're putting your own money in an account for your bank to use later for you. So is that kind of a good way to understand it?
That is a great way to understand it.
Okay. So we've got our down payment we need to be prepared for, the closing costs, and our prepaid items. And if we are purchasing a home in a community that has a homeowners association, is it correct to say that in those prepaid items that oftentimes there's an initiation fee for the homeowners association that's included in that at closing?
We would actually include that in closing costs. And yes,
okay.
Purchasing a home in a community that has an HOA, typically you're going to pay a fee to join the HOA. The HOA company may charge a fee to process the paperwork to take it from the current owner's name into yours. Typically we call that an HOA letter fee. So that's going to be included, and depending upon how the HOA is set up, you may have to pay a prorated portion from the time you close till the end of the year for the dues, not monthly HOA dues that are set up.
Okay. And I know it can be different because purchase prices obviously varied because every home is different, but can you just give us a ballpark guesstimate of, let's say we were purchasing a home that was about 250,000, putting about 3% down. Can you give us an idea about how much we would need to be prepared to come up with that closing altogether?
I would estimate if you're putting about 3% down on the house, you're going to need about $7,500 for your closing costs or for your, and then I would say about another 3% just to be on the higher side for your closing costs, escrows, HOA, any of that. So I would just be prepared for about $15,000, and that's if the seller is not contributing anything towards closing costs. And typically, you do try to work with the sellers to contribute for your buyers for closing costs, which reduce their funds.
Absolutely, yes. So that is pretty common in new construction as well, to be able to get some incentives from the seller towards closing costs. Now, does it matter with those incentives and closing costs that come from the seller? Does it matter what the limit is on what loan they do? If you get a conventional loan or an FHA loan, what is the difference between those two loans, and what does that mean in terms of money that we can get to help us out from other people like a seller to help us with that chunk that we need to bring to closing?
That's a great question, because there's different contribution limits that a seller can pay on a VA loan. The seller can pay up to 4% of the purchase price. On an FHA loan, the seller can pay up to 6% of the purchase price.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Conventional, if you're putting less than 10% down, the seller can only pay 3% of the purchase price towards their closing costs, and 10% or greater, they can pay up to 6%. But honestly, very rarely do we see closing costs that are going to exceed 3% of a sales price, unless there's something crazy going on and they're trying to pay, a year or so of HOA dues. Typically, they're not that high.
Okay. What is the difference between a conventional loan and an FHA loan? For those of us that aren't so familiar with the different types, is there a big difference?
There are some differences. So on a conventional loan, if you're not putting 20% down, you will pay PMI. The PMI is going to be risk-based pricing depending upon a borrower's credit score and how much they're putting down. So it's not one rate per borrower. It could vary. Whereas with FHA, you pay the PMI for the life of the loan unless you put 10% or more down.
In the past, I've explained to people that a debt to income ratio essentially is not only how much money do you make, but also, correct me if I'm wrong here, how many people do you owe with that? Because the bank just wants to put that formula together to make sure if they add their name to your list of people that are owed money, that they're going to get paid. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. They want to make sure that you're not overextending yourself by mortgage, purchase that exceeds what you're able to pay comfortably every month.
Well, it sounds like a lot of detail, but you really helped us kind of narrow it down. Once we get to the point where we have our credit score of 680 or higher, and we've contacted our loan officer and found our home, if the home is finished, how long does it normally take to have the loan processed on average?
On average, I would say 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay. And we hear a lot about interest rates are so low, interest rates are low. Are they low? Can you give us an idea of kind of what rates look like right now and what your thoughts are?
They are in the low to mid threes. So it is a great time to purchase. We haven't seen rates this low in years. So if there's anybody that's considering it, I would definitely take advantage of the low rates right now, because it could really make a difference in what you're qualified to purchase. A 3.5% interest rate versus a 4.5% interest rate might make a big difference in the price of the home that you're seeing, that you may not be able to qualify if rates move back up.
Yeah, that does sound like a really good rate. I remember when I purchased my home years and years ago, my first home interest rates were higher, and it definitely makes a big difference on your payment if you can get the rate in the threes. Well, Amy, I really appreciate your help today. Thank you for helping us clarify all of the common questions and making it a little easier to understand. We really appreciate your time. And if you can just tell us one more time just how we can reach you, so for those of us who want to get started on the home buying process, we know how to find you.
You can call me at 678-249-7457 or visit us online at www.buynowteam.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate it. It's nice to
Thank
see you.
you.
Hopefully soon we can meet up in person.
Yes, I can't wait.
I know, me too. I think we're all ready. Well, I'm Suzanne Springfield with Remax True, and you can find me directly at 770-880-6709. Thanks for listening today, and we hope to talk to everybody soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.